a podcast created by two guys brought together by movement, transformed into brotherhood. The boys share their authenticity as they deep dive into what it means to explore this human experience, shedding light on personal trials and accumulated wisdom. Conscious Collingwood is meant to provoke thought and insight to expand your personal awareness. Come along for the journey as Justin and Jeff exemplify what it means to be a man living wholeheartedly, balancing the divine, masculine, and feminine. Welcome to Conscious Collingwood.
All right. So we are here with Dan Fotopoulos.
Hold on. I got to focus for a second. Jesus Christ. Yeah, I'm good.
Hold on.
We got an hour. We got an hour and 20 minutes here, and you guys keep talking, but I got an hour and 20 minutes, which should be enough.
That's more than enough time.
Okay.
Okay, so the rules are I can say anything.
You can say anything you want.
Okay.
You can be real.
All right.
All right.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
Okay.
Should be. Tee us up, Jeff.
No, fuck you. You're in the flow. You do it.
All right. We are here with Dan Fotopoulos. He owns Everlove. He is a men's group facilitator where it's conscious men's work. He's a real estate agent and all around genuine guy. I think he's my best friend, and I feel very lucky and grateful for that. So he went on a 4-day vision fast in Woking, Texas.
Willis,
Texas.
North of Willis, Texas.
North of Willis, Texas, in the forest. And so this is 8 days in the forest, no communication with the outside world. 4 of those days he fasted, no food, but he could drink water. So we wanted to get him on the podcast because I knew he would be inundated with 1,000 people, because he told about 1,000 people that he was going on this trip. And to save him from sharing his story 1,000 times, we were like, let's get him on the podcast and then direct everybody there.
Yeah, let's leverage the platform.
Leverage the platform, sure.
Yeah.
I was trying to take care of my buddy, but
You guys want?
I have a lot of selfish interest here, for sure. Yeah.
Appreciate your honesty, Jeff.
Mm-hmm.
So Dan, tell us a little bit. Tell us about when you moved up to Collingwood, what your vision was moving up, and where you're at now.
Yeah, so, well, first off, thank you guys for having me on.
Pleasure.
I've sat on the sidelines of Conscious Collingwood, being really jealous about you guys starting this up, and just praying that someday I was worthy and cool enough to be invited to be a guest on the show. And
The first guest.
So, the first guest, yeah. So I knew I was going to have to, in some ways it's sad that I had to go do a big spectacle and sit by myself for 4 days just to get your guys' attention, but I'll work through that. I'll work through all that trauma at a later date. Yeah, I mean, I think most people's stories probably start this way these days, but it all started with COVID. COVID came along like a wrecking ball, and I think for those that were able to or seized it, it provided a shit ton of time to reflect and to really go inward, because we didn't have a choice. They locked us in. And so Ariane and I went to Costa Rica. We decided we wanted to get away. I think it was the first lockdown, second lockdown. I don't know. It sounds like a deep, distant nightmare. I mean, memories. And so I think we were supposed to go to Costa Rica for a week or 2 weeks. And we got down there, and inevitably we stayed for 3 months because the world was closed down back here and it sucked and it was cold. And so 3 months there allowed us a lot of time and spaciousness to realize that we weren't actually happy in our lives. And what we were doing in Kitchener-Waterloo wasn't fulfilling us. And so we started feeling into and manifesting this idea of Everlove. We weren't calling it at that time. I think we were calling it the Growth Collective. And I'm very glad glad Ariana came up with the name Everlove. But essentially, when we were there, we met so many people. There was so much amazing community. Being near water, being close to mountains, being close to nature, being surrounded by people that actually gave a shit about having conscious conversations and connecting on real, authentic conversation, and people that were active, right, and genuinely wanted to move their body, meditation, breath work. So we got super inspired there, and then we started percolating, manifesting the idea of Everlove, and we kind of were like, we got to move when we get back. And so our goal was to spend a year just traveling to places. Maybe it was going to be Costa Rica, maybe it was going to be Colorado, maybe it was going to be BC, Alberta, and Collingwood was not on our radar at that time. And then we got back, and I don't know what it was. I think she woke up one day and was just like, "How about Collingwood?" And for me, as a realtor by trade, and also both of our families still living in Kitchener-Waterloo, it was kind of like, oh fuck, like that's only 2 hours away, so that's workable. Like I can keep commuting back. I'm licensed in Ontario, so this is nice if I don't have to pick up an entire new job. So we thought, okay, we'll go to Collingwood. We'll spend a week there and see how it feels. Came up, spent a week. We wanted to do some yoga classes. At that time, I think it was one of those periods where it was kind of reopened, but kind of not. And the yoga studio that we went to, the yoga studio that she had been to previously was a place called Buddha Rider. And so she was just like, oh, I think there's this place downtown. We should go check it out. So, of course, we drive past. It's closed, like it's been closed up, and it's actually listed, right? And I'm like, oh, well, being a realtor, it's super easy. I whip out an app, I hit the address, I hit approve, it's instant approved, so we can literally just walk through this property. So we thought, oh, we'll just walk through it for fun, right? Fun little afternoon date, right? That changed our lives.
Wow.
And so, so we walked through and keep going, but essentially walked through the space, fell in love with it, started dreaming about, wow, we could start a community here. We don't know anybody in town at all, right? We don't really even know if this is a need here. But I think after COVID, community was going to be a need, and connecting to other people was going to be a need everywhere. That was isolated. That's just where humans go. And so, one thing led to another, and here we are, 2 years later.
Open now a year and a half, and what a shift. I got to move up with Dan and do the renovations at the studio. So got to be heavily involved in growing this community. So
yeah, I think that was just such a beautiful thing to be like, okay, we've got this vision, right? And we're gonna do it. And then, we start talking about it to friends, and one of our closest friends through COVID that we had created, we didn't really know Justin before COVID. We just kind of met you beforehand. But COVID, there was the whole bubble thing where you had 5 people or 10 people, whatever the fuck the number was, that you were supposed to stick within. So Justin was one of our bubble boys. One of our early bubble boys that wasn't inundated with fear like us. And so we spent a lot of time. And so when that opportunity came up, it was like, we started talking about it. And Justin you were at the point in time where you were ready to take a huge leap. Mm-hmm. And so like, how fucking amazing is that, to relocate. Like we had friends relocate with us that were enrolled in the vision. We're like, yeah, let's bring this to life. Yeah. That was super fortunate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if I was to add something, and from the outside looking in, like not knowing you two gentlemen and just hearing a little bit more of the origin story, if you will, like it's just crazy to see how fast it's all come together. Like I think 1 year anniversary of joining the studio is this month. And I won't share it now, but I plan on sharing a reel or something. But like, I can't believe how much has happened in my life in a year. And so, in your guys' anniversary and for moving up here and getting everything started, it's just crazy to see what's been created. Mm. It really is. And so from the outside looking in, it's just sometimes you're too close to the fire. You guys might not see it. I know you're aware of it, but from the outside, it's pretty impressive. Really impressive. Yeah, it's a good decision. Good way to trust your instincts.
I mean, we hoped and dreamed that there would be people like Jeffrey Allen Eichenberger that would walk through those doors, and they did.
Yeah,
they did.
They did. One after another. So, let's get to the
meat.
Get to the meat on the bone here. So, what was the catalyst for you to choose? Actually, let's just quickly touch on the men's group stuff. Why men's group?
So I guess the stories are entangled in some sense. So, so my daughter, Atlantis, she's 16 months old. When she was 2 or 3 months old, I still don't know how Ariana let me do this or supported me on this, but she's incredible, and she did. Hopefully there's not too much resentment, but she, there was, I joined this group out of Austin, Texas called the Empowered Brotherhood, and it's essentially a Telegram chat of like 1,000 men from all over, North America and beyond. And I joined this Telegram chat just like kind of curious about men's work, and then so I was on their mailing list, and they sent out a mailer promoting one of the guys that's in the group, not leading the group, this guy Jedi Azuma, and he had this program called Dojo, and it was marketed as like just this really badass like 5 days of the most intense physical, most intense mental, and most intense emotional spiritual work you can do. Like show up in the dojo, 16 other men, and like you're gonna battle it out, and it's gonna be like the way it was written was like it was hardcore. In the FAQs it was like if you think that you can't handle it, then don't come. Like it was very explicit to be like, you will be pushed to your edge in all of these things. And I was like, ooh, that sounds really exciting. And I hadn't done a retreat, and it felt like a couple years. And but Atla was also like 2 months old. But also the men's work then was too kind of calling me to, I'm a father now. Like, holy shit. Like I just, the chapter just turned. I'm a father now. I don't know what that means, figuring it out. So a men's retreat sounds cool. Never done that. Been on a lot of retreats, but never a men's specific one. So I went to Dojo, insanely powerful experience. Decided to work with Jedi one-on-one as a coach afterwards. They have fire circles, which are essentially men's circles online. So I joined a men's circle there, and I was loving it, but also I was like wishing that was in person and that, I could have that. And then I think in tandem with that, over COVID, I did start these men's circles. Justin, you're part of it, but it was these meetups in the park every Sunday because you're only allowed to be outside. It was too dangerous, and and so we were doing these meetups. They were essentially men's circles. I just don't think I was calling them that, or maybe I was. I don't remember. I called it the Growth Meetup or the Growth Collective Meetup or something like that. And so it was, it was kind of this. It was like, I was kind of interested in that in COVID and was kind of creating something. Some of us didn't know what I was doing, but I was clearly being called to connecting with men. Then I had the in-person experience that showed me how powerful it was. Plus, I'm a new father. And then plus, we now had the studio. And so at the studio, it's like typically yoga is like 98% women. And so, me being a male in yoga, Justin being a male in yoga, it's kind of an anomaly. It's pretty rare. And so every time a man would come into the studio, I would be like, who are you? What's your name? Where are you from? Are you from here? Like, I was really going out of my way to build relationships with the men in our community because selfishly, I just didn't want to be, a 95% to 5% studio. I was like, more men need to be doing yoga or at least showing up for themselves and taking time for themselves and filling themselves up and doing breath work and meditation, that kind of stuff. And so I think all those things kind of came to a head, and I decided, I'm just going to start a men's circle, figure it out. Justin was obviously there right away, so he was just like, yep, I'm down for any experiment you want to do. And then I started poking people. Jeff, maybe share your experience of being poked. I didn't have to poke you that hard. I didn't know you though.
No, whether it was the men's circle or ecstatic dance, I was just in the season of yes.
You're in the season of yes.
Yeah.
I don't even think I don't think I knew Jeff. I don't think I had seen.
I don't think we really shook hands. It was just.
I saw him in the hallway at the studio. And, hey, what's your name? And you were like, oh, I'm Jeff. I think you had just got the membership like a day before or something.
It was pretty fresh.
And I was like, hey, you want to join a men's circle? And I remember you were like, what the fuck is that? I actually think you said yes before you asked any question. You were like, yeah, that sounds great. Yeah, I caught you at a yes mode. So,
fast forward now, we have 4 circles, 10 to 12 men in each circle. There's almost 45 of us. But
This season's co-captain.
Jeff's co-captain this season.
Just to say how quickly things evolve and stuff. Yeah, it's
and it's like that circle that you guys are part of, our OG first circle is probably just about a year old.
Mm-hmm.
Men's group has been super impactful. For me, honestly, it's a place where I can go to, connect with brothers and just share what's on my heart, share what's on my mind, and not only feel that the other men are receptive, but if I feel called to ask for advice or any input, the group has so much wisdom to share because the age range is, pretty phenomenal. I think it's like 27 to
60 something.
60
I think
something.
our youngest guy is 23, and our oldest is 72.
Wow.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So, super impactful. How about you, Jeff?
Yeah, I still remember the first circle. I was nervous. I'd been used to opening up because I had a coach and stuff, and I think I was getting better at communicating. I'm working on that still, as we all are. But I remember the first circle, it was a little nerve-wracking. But then as you get comfortable with it, it just becomes just a normal routine. It's just part of who you are. And so it's interesting to see new blood come in, as we call it, because you see the nerves and a little bit of angst. But then, even when the one gentleman this was the second, he already seems more comfortable. He shared today, and it seemed to be a little more fluid. So it's just stepping outside that comfort zone, as they say, but then getting a little more comfortable as you continue to do it. And I don't know for me why, but this session I feel a little more engaged. It's not the co-captaincy. And it's not that I didn't enjoy the previous circles, but for some reason I just appreciated that much more this time around. I don't know why. It's just I don't know how to put my finger on it. It's just I'm grateful for it. Yeah. I look forward to Tuesdays.
Well done.
Yeah.
Well done, Dan.
Wow, it's you guys. Well done.
Yeah.
My circle is lonely.
Well done for us for showing
Show
up.
I think it's a beautiful, to your point, I think the idea of having real conversations, being vulnerable, being authentic, talking about our fears, talking about even celebrating ourselves. There's a lot of stuff that does not get talked about anywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
And, whether that's the upbringing, the culture, physiological, there's a million reasons why. But we have to go out of our way to create those spaces, unfortunately, now. But to your point, it's like the more, when you show up every week and you have that conversation for an hour, this becomes the new norm. We've disrupted the pattern that you're talking about today. We've messed with our pattern, and then it just becomes us.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's something simple I recognize too. It's like, for the most part, whenever we see each other, whether it's outside of the circle or even meeting for our Tuesday circle, it's like usually the introduction is a hug. It's not just a what's up. Like, there is a true brotherhood, and I don't know. I'm fascinated by that. There's no shyness around showing that type of affection. Do you know what I mean? And the other thing I find very impressive is your ability to run the Growth Social, where it's a little more open, if you will. Not to the public, but yeah, it's not the container that you have on the set day. So this is, I think you're operating them every, what is it, 3 or 4 months. But that allows people that haven't experienced one yet to come in and get a taste of what it's like. And then you get probably inundated with requests for more circles and whatever else. And as you call it, you or Justin called it speed dating.
Yeah, the Men's Growth Social is definitely growth-minded speed dating for men. But we don't market it that way because, it's already scary enough.
No, but it does I don't know, it just shatters so many stories and just so much BS around communicating as a man and stuff. I think they're pretty cool evenings. So
you know what, we joke about it and say we don't market it as growth speed dating, because people wouldn't show up. I make that joke, and it's really actually not true. Men actually show up people cut. There's always 10 to 15 guys. I'm like, where the fuck did you come from?
Mm-hmm.
And they show up to the unknown, to the experiment, only knowing this is a 3-hour event with men. We're going to talk about real shit, our feelings, and there's no alcohol, right? So the fact that men are signing up for that
Mm-hmm.
is like sounds wild, and it's not. To me, it just highlights that we have this story that men are like disconnected from those things and want to run away from those things, and I'm slowly realizing that's not true.
Mm-hmm.
Men actually want that and crave that, and it's just slowly we're giving ourselves permission to indulge in it.
Yeah. And the last thing I'd like to add to that, at least what I would like to say, is it's not like you meet someone and you're best friends forever. It's not like that. You're going to resonate with some people. You actually, you just use your own discernment and you're going to connect and align with certain people. And others you might go, you know what, I just need to get to know you a little bit more to be able to trust you and go there. But the common theme is we're all men and we all pretty much deal with the same shit, different story, right? And so that's what I enjoy too. It's like just getting into that room and going, this is so fascinating. We all have similar stories. Some are a little more robust than others, but I just wanted to add that because I think it might be misconstrued that we're all just best friends. It's all sunshine and rainbows. It's we're not all best friends, but am I screwing that up? You know what I'm saying though? It's
I think the depth of the relationships that we've created is because we've been in the same season with a few of the guys over and over again, and the realness has just kept going. But I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
You build the trust, you build that connection, and then you're able to go deeper, faster, and build those bonds and stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah. And you only
Can't be
share.
friends with everybody.
Yeah.
That's just the reality of it.
Yeah.
But everybody's great.
Yeah.
Everybody's great in their own way, and if you don't resonate with somebody else will.
Yeah. But we're all showing up for the right reasons, for the same reasons.
Yeah, there's an activity that I've seen done in retreats where you can have 40 people brand new, or maybe a day into a workshop, and everybody walks around the room, and when the music stops, you go and you put your hand on somebody that you feel connected or pulled towards, and it's not that there's one person in the center and this is the next prime minister, right? It's like it's just a web of hands everywhere. Everybody's connected and pulled to each other in different ways.
That's cool.
And you can do the same exercise, and you can do, put your hand on somebody that you're pushed from, somebody that's triggering to you, and you don't even know why. It's just like you don't trust. And again, it's a web. And there might be some people that have some more hands than others, and and you can. Is it body language? Is it their energy? It's but we are. There's two things to that. Is one is we're extremely intuitive beings, right? And so we do pick up on each other's energy. And we all have different preferences, and so who's called to who is it's a web, which I think is really cool in the circle. But I think even when I think the other beauty of it to just land on what you're saying was, even if there's somebody in the group that you don't resonate with and actually does rub you the wrong way or triggers you, that's just an opportunity. That's just a reflection back at us, right? It's just like, oh, interesting. Why does that guy bug me?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oftentimes, if someone's triggering or bugging you, it's you can understand something about them only because you can understand yourself. So I'll give an example. If I'm in a workshop or something and somebody keeps raising their hand and talking a lot, I get super triggered. Like, that person just needs to shut down, or like sit down, shut the fuck up. Like, I get super riled up about it. Like that someone keeps taking up lots of space, right? And it doesn't bug Ariana. She's like, oh, that person's asking good questions. I'm like, no, but they've asked 3, and this person only asked 1, and nobody else has. And so it's like, it doesn't bug her at all. And the truth is that there's a part of myself that always used to talk, and fill silence and try to have a really big presence to prove myself. And it was from an insecure place. And so when I see someone else doing that, I make up the story that they're insecure and they're taking up a lot of space, which could be true or could not be true about them. But I actually am disgusted and find it unattractive, that quality in myself. And that's why I'm portraying it out onto that person.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just a reflection back to me to remind me, oh, right, like that's a part of myself that I can connect with that I don't like, that I'm actively trying to work against. Mm-hmm. But also it could be that, I play it small now and I don't take up lots of space. And so maybe I'm actually jealous and envious that person actually doesn't give 0 fucks about everybody else. And it's totally fine taking up space.
Mm-hmm.
And so really I'm just jealous because I want to embody that. So it's just, I think the circle has so much power to it, but you're in there with a mirror of 9 other people. And as much as you want to pay attention to the mirrors, you can learn a shit ton about yourself.
Yeah. Oh, I'm glad you shared that. It's they help clarify what I'm saying, because going to those rooms sometimes and you see these different energies, you're just like, what is this about this person that it's what's here for me? Yeah.
I've also noticed it as if I've seen someone that's dealing with troubles that I've had to deal with, and I don't want to go back to that place or have to see it within another person.
Don't take me back there.
Don't take me back there. All right. So, yeah,
that was
men's
great.
group has been powerful. So, if
you're in the Collingwood area, you're looking for a men's team.
Yeah, if you're looking for a men's group,
reach out.
Reach out to Everlove.
Yeah.
We're slowly expanding and trying to make the community a healthier place with wise, strong, steady men. And
yeah, Jeff and Justin are going to actually be leading their own circles starting January, so we have space for another 20 men. So reach out.
We'll see. We'll see.
That's how I
You had to sign the dotted line on that one, but
did we mention I'm in sales?
Yeah.
I didn't want to bring it up. I'm like, fucking, we're not even 20. It's just selling.
He's just selling.
Jeff, for the podcast, is there any rules? And I think Jeff said, no selling houses, no selling T-shirts.
Yeah, that's funny.
So funny.
Oh, mercy.
So going to your fast experience in Texas.
I don't want to go
there. Why? So obviously you built this, relationship with Jetty, and so you built trust with this man and his ability to create a powerful experience. But what was it within you that was like, I want it to be this. I want to take myself here.
Yeah, when I came out of dojo, that first experience, there was 1 or 2 other guys that had done dojo that had also done Compass, and Compass is the, I can't call it a retreat or a trip, the experience. Compass is the experience that Jetty leads, which is a rite of passage, which is it's a death and a rebirth. It's the there's a lot of different. I think all cultures have their own rites of passage. It's gone back thousands and thousands of years. This specific one that Jetty is affiliated with is he's been a part of the Native American Church in the U.S. for quite some time, and I think he first did his Vision Fast in 2014, and his purpose is to initiate an entire generation of boys into men. And so that's his mission, and I thought that was really cool. And the couple of guys that had done it were saying that it was extremely powerful, like even more powerful than dojo. And coming out of dojo, I was like, how the fuck can there be a more powerful experience than that? Like that just blew my mind, And so immediately I was intrigued and was kind of like, yeah, I got to do that. I think also too, just the idea of 4 days, 4 nights alone, no technology, no distraction, no food in the wilderness. I was like, these are a culmination of all of my biggest fears. Like, I don't think most of us, certainly me, I've never even gone 24 hours without my phone since they came out, I've never gone 24 hours without food. Like, I think that's the most I've ever done. I've never gone 24 hours without seeing another human. When the fuck would that happen? I didn't realize at the time, but the idea is to be exposed in nature, like no tent. You have a tarp, sleeping bag, water, and a journal, and like that's it. So insects, bugs, mosquitoes, fucking spiders, snakes, coyotes, like all of my fucking fears wrapped into one was like, whoa, that sounds like that's that Compass thing. And so I was immediately, at that time my mantra was, and still is to some effect, is if it scares the shit out of me, if it's vulnerable, if it's uncomfortable, just start running towards it as fast as I can. Because the inclination is to run the opposite way. So if I can just quickly sign up for that, quickly run towards that, then I'm less likely to convince myself and find a reason why not to. So I pretty much instantly told Jetty, I want to do Compass like in the next year. And so he had 3 or 4 dates. And obviously my daughter was 3 months old, and I was just coming back from leaving her for the first time with area support. So it was like, I better book this a ways out, you know, to be supportive and also to integrate the learnings that I had from dojo. And so I had basically booked it a year out. Did I answer your question? I don't remember the initial
no, that
question.
answers the question.
I think I was also intrigued by the tribal aspect of it. I think the, you know, I'm fascinated with I've read a lot of books that talk about this, but the idea that, you know, we've lost the way of initiation.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a lot of the, I hate the word toxic masculinity. I hate when people say that.
Mm-hmm.
We all have masculine and feminine energies. They both sides have shadows. I think that a lot of what people call toxic masculinity in today's world is really not masculinity. It's like little boy energy,
Mm-hmm.
right? And Jess, I know you've read Magician, Lover, Warrior, King Warrior as well. So yeah, it's boy energy acting out, and it's like, if our culture has never initiated boys and showed them what it means to become a man, then where do we learn that from? Mm-hmm. You know, and I think it's a really it's a lost art, and so I was excited to just explore what that meant for me. Mm-hmm. You know, what a death and rebirth looked like for me. Mm. Yeah, I was just really curious to see how that all went down.
Yeah, I think a rite of passage is extremely important, and I've gone at it in different ways. I remember getting tattooed when I was younger. I was like, I'm a fucking man now. You know, like, I can endure 8 hours of pain and whatever. And then also, you know, Spartan racing was one where it was like, I'm gonna go in this as somebody, and I'm gonna come out the other side. And it was that dedication to the training, and just, yeah, I made it into somewhat of a rite of passage, but nothing to this extent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there is I think it's the book that talks about it, but in the absence of these initiations that were done for thousands of years, where it's the elders, right, that are passing on the information through this process. In the absence of that, pseudo initiations emerge, right? And so, you know, I think back to when I played junior B lacrosse. It's like, okay, you're a rookie, so you're getting initiated. So, you know, we're gonna stuff you in the back of the bus in the washroom with 6 other rookies, and you guys got to stay in there for 8 hours, right? Or like the crazy hazings that happen in, right? You know, like men are the worst.
Oh yeah, Jeff's
talked our pseudo initiations are horrible, right? Hockey.
Surprised I still eat pizza.
Hockey's like a perfect example of where, you know, you get other boys initiating other boys, right? Mm-hmm. That's not being initiated in manhood. That's just a fucking pseudo initiation that arises in our culture when we don't have the elders passing on. And right now, our elders, you know, like if I look at my father, he didn't initiate me into becoming a man because nobody initiated him to become a man. Mm-hmm. You know, and I love him, and he's done a lot of things right. And I could sit here and be like, well, he's a big boy, you know, right? And I'm the adult in this and all that. But that's the reality is it's lost. And, you know, so we have, you know, you look at leadership at any level, whether it's politics or whatever, there is some seriously ungrounded people, right?
Very polite of you, yeah.
Running the world.
Yeah, it's fucking nuts, right?
Insane.
You know, and then people are like, "Oh, masculinity. We, you know, less men. We need less." No, we need more true masculine, grounded, initiated, conscious men in leadership. Mm-hmm. And then you wouldn't hate men so much, mm-hmm. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's a man tapped into his feminine side too.
Yeah,
I think, you know, when I think of masculinity, it's a man that knows himself in the face of stress and how to respond from a steady place, from his heart, who has a mission and a dream, and also knows when true elders are around, he does more listening than he does speaking. That's like a real man in my eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And someone that says what they mean and means what they say.
Yeah, masculine certainly doesn't mean man, and feminine doesn't mean woman.
No.
Call it yin, call it
Yeah.
yin yang, right?
Mhm.
Call it what you want to call it. I think the depth to which we can feel into both sides is a true masculine man is able to support and hold space.
Mm-hmm.
Well, how can I hold space for feminine energy if I don't know what feminine energy is and I don't have the ability to tap into my own emotions?
How much was trust a factor? Like, if you hadn't spent this time with Jetty or haven't got to know him, would you think you could have signed up? Like, how much was trust?
Yeah, that's a great call out. I think Jetty was the first male role model that I had come across in a long time. That I was like, ooh, I want to embody more of that man. Up until that, I was just lone wolfing it. I was designing out of thin air who I wanted to be, what my higher self was. And when I met Jetty at Dojo, I was like, wow, here's someone I actually want to learn from. Here's somebody I can look up to that's doing the work. And so I think trust was a huge element of like, you know what, I'd go into battle with this guy.
Mm-hmm.
I trust whatever experiment he wants to run me through.
Yeah.
So I want to start getting into the retreat.
The trauma.
Yeah, the trauma. AJ trauma. What was going through your mind leaving Ariana and leaving Atla and driving to the airport?
Yeah, I feel like leading up to Compass, I wasn't really thinking too much. Like, I was just like, oh, it's gonna be so fun. Like, I can say this now. I was super fucking naive. No, like, hands down. I went out and did a 24-hour fast in nature by myself a couple weeks prior to Compass as like a test run. Thank God I did that, because I realized I didn't even know how to set up my own fucking tent. Don't know how to set up a tarp, ropes, none of that. It was a disaster and perfect, exactly what it was supposed to be. But yeah, leaving Ariana and Atla was fuck. You don't want to miss a minute when they're that young, right? I realized. So yeah, I had never. It was an 8-day experience, but I was going to be gone for 10 days because of flights. So 10 days away. I've never been 10 days away from Atlantis, and I realized I've actually never been 10 days away from Ariana in our 9 years of being together, which is wild. And even if I had been away from her for, let's say, 5 days, 6 days, you call each other, you text each other, you send pictures, right? There's all these connection points. So the thought of getting rid of my phone for 8 full days and having zero contact, on one side it was like a huge sense of relief of like, wow, I can actually unplug from the matrix and just fucking chill. Like, no responsibility, no expectation, nothing. That was exciting, but it was also terrifying, because I'm like, well, what if something happens? Like, I'm the protector, Ariana, the night before I left, she came down from the bedroom. She's like, what the fuck? Why is there a bat beside my bed? And I was like, oh yeah, I put that there because if something happens, like, then you grab the bat and start swinging. Like, well, what the fuck? Like, she was kind of just like, this makes me more nervous. Like, you think I need a bat? And I was like, well, I don't know. I just, and it's like stuff like that, right? Like, I'm supposed to be there. And so I definitely felt a guilt and a fear of stepping away.
Okay. You land. You show up to base camp. Tell us what happens.
Well, I mean, so I guess caveat, I'll share as much as I can.
Yes.
There's definitely elements that I will keep secretive, because my hope is that if there are men listening to this and they want to do a rite of passage, then I want to leave enough on the bone for them.
Is there a bond and what's that word I'm looking for? I just had and I lost it. Like a sworn secrecy thing. Like, you agree to only.
There are some elements that yes, I need to keep secret, and there are other elements that are just encouraged to keep secret, so that to not rob anybody of that experience.
Yeah,
that's understood.
Yeah, I would say share like you're sharing to anybody that would ask.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
No, I won't do that. I can give you more than that. Because anybody that's been asking over the last week and a half, I've just been saying, I think I've been summarizing it as hardest thing I've ever done, most powerful thing I've ever done. Thanks for asking.
Wow.
Yeah.
And
And tune into Conscious
in
Collingwood.
some ways, that's been a big struggle because I've wanted to go deeper, but it would just require so much time. And also, it is a sacred story, and I want to be mindful of who I share. But in some ways, sharing those 2 sentences has been really diminishing the experience. You know, trying to summarize it in 2 words. So I appreciate you guys giving me the opportunity to ask some questions. But the first, so, you know, getting to base camp, you know, essentially it's an 8-day experience. First 3 days are, you know, me and 9 other participants and 4 guides, you know, who have done this many times. That 3 days is deep self-work. There's almost always a fire going. You know, you've got your tent set up. It's very minimal, and it's deep discovery work. You know, it's essentially an ongoing men's circle for 24/7 for 3 days. And, you know, you go in there with a purpose statement, and, you know, my purpose statement going in was, I'm an embodied leader who calls forth the unlocked potential in people. That was like my power statement. And by the end, when I walked out of there, my statement was, I am creative, alive and free, connected to myself and community. And those are 2 very different statements, right?
Jeez.
Like, not even tied to each other.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's as a result of being around a fire with 3 men doing deep work, and also being plunged into nature for smaller amounts of time leading up to that. And, you know, there's calls prior, like the, you know, once you say yes to Compass, it's considered like the severance phase. Because as soon as you say yes, even if you're not doing anything, even if the calls haven't started happening yet, you start noticing. It's like the chapter is coming to an end, so you can feel it. You can feel the death creeping in and the rebirth on the horizon. So that 3 days was very powerful. I guess one thing I would share about that 3 days is, you know, we all had our tents, and some guys were doing, you know, hammocks. Some guys were doing tents, and there was one of the guides was just sleeping fully exposed, just, you know, one of those skinny air mattresses that hardly works, a sleeping bag, and that's it. That's how he's sleeping at night. I was like, how the fuck's this guy just sleeping out like that? And I didn't realize until I got there that the encouragement was to not bring your tent. Like, you can have it at base camp, but when you go out alone for 4 days, 4 nights, like, don't bring your tent. And I was like, Jesus Christ, I can't do that. Like, fucking animals, I'm going to get eaten alive. You know, not that a thin fabric is ever really going to save you, but there's something about
The shelter,
it's comfortable to be enclosed. And the encouragement was to really lean into discomfort. So if a tent will bring you comfort, then you shouldn't have the tent, you know, because it also, you know, cuts you off from nature. So the first night at base camp, I slept in a tent. The second night at base camp, I decided, you know what, I'm going to drop my tent, and I'm just going to sleep under the fly. And so for those that don't know, the fly, I just learned this recently, but the fly is just the covering that goes over the tent that keeps you safe from the rain. So essentially I slept under a tarp, and I allowed my head and my neck to be exposed, like sticking out from the end. So that way I could see the stars and be exposed. I mean, that night was fucking mosquitoes. Like, it was just like, it was really hard to sleep exposed. That's the biggest thing when you come out of a tent too, is that the bugs just like attack you. And so that was night 2. Night 3, I was getting real confident. I was like, you know what? Night 3, we're supposed to go out the next morning, right? The 4th morning we wake up, we head out. And so I'm like, you know what? I'm going to sleep fully exposed. I'm going to drop my fly. I'm just going to be the fucking cool guy that's just, you know, tent and...
Sounds like you're dropping your pants and just sleeping naked.
Drop your fly.
I'm going exposed. Drop my fly.
Basically just on the ground with a sleeping bag, right? So I did that the 3rd night. Well, I sleeping, and all of a sudden I just, you know, start dreaming of waterfalls and water on my face. And of course, wake up and it's pitch black, and there is water on my face. It's fucking starting to rain, and it hadn't rained since we got there. And so my sleeping bag is soaked. I start kind of waking up. All my bag, my equipment, everything was out around me. So everything was getting soaked. And I'm about to wake up and go out, right? And so I, you know, it was dark, it was wet. I started kind of getting all my gear together. I went over to the tent that was set up for the kitchen, right? You know, I went and huddled under there. The other 2 guys that were sleeping exposed had already made it under there. So I went under there, and I tried to sleep, and all my wet shit. And literally it felt like 20 minutes later, I heard the rattle going, just a light rattle, like, and that was the unspoken sign to wake up, get your gear, and like cross the threshold and go through a process that, you know, I won't describe, but it's sacred and it's all in silence. And so I started waking up. I was like, I'm so fucking tired. I think we had stayed up until 2 a.m. doing deep work with a couple of the men. You know, now it's like, I don't even know what time, like fucking 5 a.m. I've hardly slept. All my gear is soaked. So I'm starting, this is not how I envisioned the start, right? I'm supposed to be grounded at the start, and then the 4 days is supposed to be hell. And, you know, I'm looking around at the other guys, and it's still dark, and guys have garbage bags on their bags, or they got tarps on their bags and whatever. And here I am. I found out later that I actually did have one of those bag tarps that I could have used, but I didn't know at the time. So all my shit's soaked. I'm soaked. And here I am going out into the darkness at 5 a.m. to start 4 days and 4 nights of no food. And it was just a fucking terrible way to start. Or the best way to start, but it didn't feel like it in the moment.
Jeez. 4 days of no food. How long have you fasted, Jeff? What's the longest for you? Maybe like a stomach bug?
Yeah, that's right. It might be 20 hours or something. I don't know if it'd be a full 24.
You know what's so funny?
What,
I
Justin?
always thought it was so funny. Like, whenever I had a stomach flu, they'd be like, we need to get food in you. I'm like, no, fuck, please don't.
Yeah.
It's just going to come out one of these ends.
Yeah, one of the ends, or both, or both.
or both
at the same time.
Nightmare.
Yeah. Oh.
You know what? The food. One thing I will say is the people assume that the food was the hardest thing. The food was like the last thing on my mind. I was most nervous about not eating for 4 days, but it actually wasn't an issue at all.
Okay.
And very few hunger pains. Like I actually don't even remember really getting hunger pains. And I feel like that's really interesting on the mind-body connection. It's almost like the mind knew I had no food. I wasn't going to see anybody else for 4 days. So it just said, you know, skip the hunger pain step. Don't bother sending the signal down there because
it doesn't matter.
There's no food.
Wow.
So,
did you have to ration water? How did you manage water?
There's you get given 4 gallons of water. 2 gallons you have to hike in the day before your fast, leave it at your spot, and the other 2 you hike in well, in my case, in the pouring rain in the morning.
Oh man.
So,
What did anybody else have hunger pains?
it's a good question. I don't know. We share our stories afterwards, but the stories are so deep they don't even touch on the hunger.
That's very interesting. It's really not even a like.
We're conditioned.
The lead up to it, yeah, I would think would be the food would be a lot for me, but that's very interesting.
Yeah. And so, you have a lot of time out there by yourself for 4 days to think about things. one thing I thought about and realized is that it's actually 4.5 days without food. Because they have a meal the night before, then you go out in the morning. So if anybody does this, don't let them fool you. It's 4.5 days.
Did you notice your energy diminish as the days went on?
I think there was like a surge of energy in day 3, maybe. I don't know I think physiologically after day 2, there's a process by which the body starts using old fats. You might know better than me, but I think it starts grabbing some old storage and burning it. So
went into ketosis.
Yeah, I definitely felt, you know, the when you wake up on the 5th morning and make your way out to cross the threshold and go through the process, I was like, it was a struggle.
What are you open to sharing about your 4 days of? Do you have any questions?
Like, can I have a question? Like, so you have your 3 day lead up, then you go out. Like, how mentally challenging was that? Like, did you have expectations and you're beating yourself up because you weren't prepared enough, or not to put words in your mouth, but potentially you're not prepared enough, so you're beating yourself up about that, and then you're just like, fuck me, this is not how this is supposed to go. So, like, even just walking out with little rest.
Yeah, it was. Like, I was in my head. I was like, this is not. You know, I was comparing myself to the other men who were walking out, looking much more prepared. You know, I was kicking myself. Why the fuck did I sacrifice my comfort of my tent, you know, a night early? What was I thinking? You know? And it's like, the truth is I was like trying to like do that once sleep exposed around the comfort of knowing there's other men. So the coyotes are going to come, and then at least there's people around before I did it alone. But yeah, I was kicking myself, and my perfectionist nature and my need for control was like, this is not how it was supposed to start. So I was definitely grabbing onto, this is not how I imagined it, right? I was supposed to be, when I set out, I was supposed to be feeling well slept, well fed, good energy, prepared, dry, right? And it was all the opposite. So that was yeah, but at that point, you're walking out, you're here, you haven't had your phone already for days, you've gotten super clear on your purpose, what's going to die. You have the accountability of all these other men, they're about to do the same thing. There's really no turning back.
Do you get so focused on yourself that you are able to detach from the family, or is that a worry on your mind, or you're so focused on survival and taking care of yourself that, like, how
Yeah, that's a good question. I definitely think the first day, I mean, you're definitely in it. Certainly in those moments when it's dark and rainy and I'm trying to find my spot in the middle of the wilderness and, start setting up my tarp and all that stuff. I'm not fucking thinking about my family is fucking back in Canada in a big old house, enjoying a nice little cup of coffee and breakfast. They're fucking fine. So, trade up spots. So yeah, I think it wasn't until day 2 or 3 that I started thinking about them. And day 1 was very much survival, and then day 2 or 3, my in my journal, Ariana had snuck in a card and from her and 2 pictures of me, Atla, and Ariana. Yeah. And that was actually the first time I cried out there during my 4-day fast. Was when I read her card and kind of looked at their pictures, and then it got me good.
Did it open you up?
Yeah, it was helpful, because one of the story that I often have about myself is that I can't feel, like I'm numb, and I always benchmark crying. And so, I'll go a year without crying, and I'll tell myself the story that means that I can't feel. And so, crying just from reading some words on a card is not normal for me. And so that was helpful for me to open up and feel that. I felt, because when I cry, I feel alive. I'm feeling. And and that was part of my statement, to be creative, alive, and free. So alive to me means feeling my emotions.
So did that initiate more of that then? Because you were able to open up a little bit and you're able to.
Yeah, I mean, I think, truthfully, I only cried day 2. I didn't cry day 3 or 4. I think in my soul I was crying day 3 or 4, but I think crying would have taken too much energy. So, yeah, I can.
How'd you spend your days?
Oh, what a great question. So I think, for example, you wake up day 1, and you're like, so that, I guess I'll pick up where I left off. So you get out to your spot. You pick your spot the day before. You feel called to it. Everybody goes out kind of exploring in the wilderness, and you find a spot. And I found a spot that I kept thinking I need to go really deep into the woods, really, really deep. And I kept getting into these deep bushes, and I couldn't push through. And I realized, where am I making this harder on myself than I need to be? Where in my life am I trying to go through the fucking deep bush, right? To try to prove what? I'm going to fucking starve myself by myself for 4 days, and I'm still trying to make it harder to prove that I'm what? The most badass ever? And one of my learnings out there was that I'm still trying to prove to myself. I tell myself I'm trying to, prove myself for others, but really it's proving to myself. And so I backtracked a bit, and I found this spot. Basically, there was a big tree. It was all pine trees. It was deep in the forest. There was a big tree, and I kind of looked at him, and I was like, "Oh, the grandfather tree. This is my grandfather tree." And and then a couple meters away, there was 4 other pine trees that were a little bit smaller, and so it almost created this circle. The big grandfather at the front, and then the 4 other ones kind of rounding out this circle. And so I told myself, okay, this is my grandfather tree, and these are my 4 teachers. These are his children. And each day, one of these trees are going to teach me something. Day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4. And, backtracking a bit. So this is when I found my spot before I went out on the 4-day fast.
Before you crossed the threshold.
Right. And so when I was out there, I started singing to these trees, and just I was just tapping into my heart. It was, the sun was shining, and I started this song came to me, and I started singing to the trees, and they were, you start, when you're out there with nature, you really do start, I don't want to say going crazy or being weird, but it's like, there's like a coming home almost. It's like, I'm not separate from these things. I make up the story that I'm like this foreign object and I don't belong in the forest, and everything out here is trying to kill me. And what I realize, and what most people I think will realize, is that no, actually we're all made of the same thing. We're all stardust. We all decompose, like we're the same thing. And actually nothing out here is trying to kill me. Almost everything is running from me. If I get close to a spider, it runs away, right? It's like everything out here is trying to, the exception of those motherfucking mosquitoes. Those, I don't know what their purpose is.
They're relentless, yeah.
So I kill them. But every other insect I was actually like embracing the peace of it, of like, let's just be at peace with these things. So anyways, when I was singing to the trees that day, this orange butterfly came and landed right in front of me, and then spread open its wings, and it just stopped, and it was there for about 10 minutes with its wings wide open. Literally, I was just singing to it and the trees. And it's like at that point that when you find your spot, like you're out there for a couple hours alone, and so I guess if there was a camera there or something watching, like this guy's lost his mind. But in the moment, you just like you're connected, and the butterfly was just open. And it was, I think I wrote in my journal, it's like, it opened up almost like a book. And it was just like, come child, it's time to read. It's time to learn. And so that's kind of how my spot called to me. So going back to the fast on day 1, when I, the light started coming up, I was wet, all these things, but I got to my spot and was just like, okay, I'm here. Like, this is my spot. I think I even, I took off my rain jacket and actually just let myself get more wet, because I was just like practice of acceptance of like, I'm fucking here for 4 days, so I'm just gonna accept it. I can dry my shit out later. I have the whole day. I started setting up my tarp between grandfather tree and the 4th tree. And so to go to your point, how do you spend your day? I set up my camp. I set up my little chair. I have one of those like little portable chairs. Yeah. Set up my little portable chair. I got out my knife and I found a stick and I started carving like a spear, because that seemed like the right thing to do. And spent a lot of time carving, and then I journaled a little bit about how pissed off I was about the morning and already the lessons. And then you drink a shit ton of water because you got nothing else to do. And then you start peeing. I don't know if everybody does this, but this is me. I started every 10 minutes it felt like I had to pee, so I was just peeing a giant circle around me and my trees to try to already create this marked barrier of animals to leave me alone and not eat me in the middle of the night. So I don't know if everybody does that, but that
seems kind of clever, actually.
Yeah, then you dig you get a little rock and you dig your latrine. Like you set up a little dig so where you're gonna shit. Which to be honest, I had never shit in the woods.
What?
Ever in my life. It's true. I'm a city slicker. Like this was scary.
Holy
shit, spot, baby.
Yeah.
You have toilet paper?
Yeah, so I brought a roll of toilet paper. Nice. I did, and then
wet toilet paper,
plastic bag to put the things in. Because
fucking shit in the bush is a weekly occurrence for Eichenbergers.
Yeah.
Oh, ask Curtis. Oh, Jesus, it happens. Isn't that interesting? That's a stat. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
See. Yeah.
There's honestly nothing there's no place I'd rather shit than
It's peaceful.
It's nice. Feels right.
You know what? I was surprised how quickly the flies showed up.
Yeah, instantly.
Like instantly. I was like, where do these fucking fuckers come from?
It's almost like they came out of it.
Seriously. And it was weird. And and I went to do it, and then I was like, wait, I think I actually gotta take my pants off. Because it could like fall. Mm-hmm. And so then it's like next thing you know, you're bottom half naked in the middle of nowhere, shitting in the woods, and you're like, this is day 1 of 4. Like, what the fuck am I doing with my life? Like I definitely thought of like, what have I signed up for? But to round that out, so you take shit in your latrine, you fucking do all these things, and then you look up. So it's like I've done all the things I could possibly do. I've reorganized my bag. I set up my tarp. I did my ropes and all this stuff. I sang to the fucking trees for a little bit. I reread my card from Mariana. I stared at my picture. I did some breath work. I meditated, right? I journaled. And then you look up at the sun and it hasn't moved. It hasn't moved. It's maybe been an hour. And then you're like, oh my God, this is, probably 10 a.m., day one. What the fuck am I going to do out here? And, and then I think I was like, well, you know what? Maybe I'll just take a nap. Like, I have no responsibility. I have nothing to do. I'm actually really tired. Life has burnt me out. I'm going to fucking nap. So, you nap in and out casually throughout the afternoon. But then nighttime comes around, you're screwed. So, yeah, the first, I guess, moving into night number one, and honestly, almost all the nights were the same thing, was night number one, that next morning, I wrote that that was the longest night of my entire life. Hands down. And then in my journal, if you look, day 3, night number 2, longest night of my entire life. And it was the same thing. Every night was longer than the last, if that's even possible. And it's like the amount of fear, sleeping exposed is like the tarp, the tarp only comes down, there's 4 feet exposed below the tarp. So in the middle of the night, I was sleeping with literally in my sleeping bag, knife in one hand, headlamp in the other hand. And it seemed like every 5 minutes, I was waking up, turning on light. Who's there? Who's there? Like literally in fight, flight, freeze all night, every night, because it was hard to tell if it was real animals or not. But it's like you're dreaming about coyotes coming in and pulling you out of your sleeping bag. But then you also hear the coyotes, and then you wake up. You're like, am I hearing them? Am I dreaming? I think both are actually true. I think both cases happened, but it's hard to distinguish. It's pitch fucking black. There's nobody around to save you. You have a whistle.
That's a great
there's a
whistle.
process. There's a protocol. You have a whistle, but ain't nobody getting there soon. So, the night times were my nervous system was real messed up.
And to help the context too, you weren't really allowed or supposed to start a fire or do anything that really distracts you, right? So
correct. No fire.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything that would distract you, you were encouraged not to do. So even like going for a hike, going for a walk, like you're supposed to stay relatively close to your space.
Did there come a point then where there became this level of acceptance, like if this is the rest of my life, could I do it? Or get to a point where, okay, this is my next few days, and does a creative process start happening where you're into poetry and stuff? Do you start writing poems or thinking about the next business, or is it just you're so pissed off where you're at, or what's the?
Yeah, great question. The first thing that came to mind there when you're talking about acceptance and surrender and stuff is the first 2 to 3 hours of every night was you'd be laying there, your sleeping bag, you'd be so nestled in your sleeping bag, but your head's still exposed. So you just hear, and as soon as you stop hearing the buzzing, you know that it's landed on your head, and so you just start slapping the shit out of your head, right? And then you assume you got it, but you have no way to validate. And then 5 seconds later, and it's like that into eternity, right? Like it doesn't stop. And so for 2 hours, you kill a couple hundred mosquitoes, right? And then you surrender, and you're like, you get to a point where you just give up, right? And it was the same thing with the waking up and the freaking out, and like the pine trees are constantly, it's windy, it's constantly dropping leaves, right? Branches. So it always sounds like something is approaching you from every direction. And maybe sometimes it is, but most of the times it's just shit falling off the trees because they're so dense. So the amount to which your ears are alive and awake at night is wild. But there would get to a point every night where there was just, if I'm going to get eaten, fuck it.
Just
not mosquitoes, coyotes, like I surrender. I'm so tired. I can't fight anymore. And you just surrender. And it's like that,
sounds like there's a piece there to some degree.
Yeah, there is. Well, then you actually get some sleep.
Yeah.
And I think, it's like nature can teach us a million lessons is what I learned out there. And one of them was Like, nature was kind of like, every time that I thought I was in control of the situation, nature was like, oh child. Like, do we need to do something else to show you that you're not in control?
Yeah.
You know?
I think it's kind of beautiful, but obviously, you know, maybe in the after perspective, because you went in there with all these, like, I want parts of that control. Like, I want to let go of that control, let go of that need to be, like, you know, controlling all the aspects of your life, and this was like diving into uncontrolled chaos.
Yeah, there's you know,
discomfort.
I journaled 20 elements of myself that I wanted to die out there.
Mm-hmm.
In some tribal traditions, when the boy goes out to do his rite of passage into the wilderness, the entire tribe and the entire community will treat that boy as if he has died. So he will actually come back with a brand new name, and they won't reference the old boy, because if they do, it's like that boy died, and he comes back with a man's name. And you know, I think that's part of the actually challenging part of me coming out of this experience and coming back is I feel really grateful that I have a tribe here, and I have a community, and I have people that know me. And most of our society, even like you guys are close to me. You understand the work, but also you haven't gone through the rite of passage, right? So it's like even the people that know you the most still can't contemplate what took place.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, that's just a tribal element of, you know, that's lost, that we now, they say when you come out day 4 that you know, what you just did was the easy part.
Mm-hmm.
And incorporation back in the real life, that's the hard part. That's the road that you'll be trucking, you know, the next couple of years. And when I came out, I was like, no fucking way, that was the easy part. That was the hardest thing I've ever done times 5. Mm-hmm. But the incorporation has been really challenging, because it's like, okay, I'm a new man. I've told myself I'm a new man. You know, I went there with elements of myself that were going to die. I did all the rituals. I did all the ceremony. I did all the process that I was encouraged to do. And so I believe that. But there's still a part of me that doesn't believe that. But I'm like committed to this. And then I come back and everybody else is treating me the same. They're treating the Dan that left. Mm. Right? And so everywhere I go is a mirror, and it's being reflected back to me that I am still that man. Right? Mm. And so I think for anybody that does a retreat or a powerful experience, the incorporation and coming back is, it's the hardest part. It's like, I'm somebody new, and I'm trying to convince myself that I'm somebody new. I can't try to convince you too.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Ever since you've been home, you energetically are definitely a different person.
Thank you.
Yeah. That was a compliment.
Oh, absolutely.
I received it as such.
And yeah, the amount of respect I have for you after that is huge, because I'm not brave enough to do it myself. So
that's why I signed you up next spring.
Tab, you're it.
That scares me.
It should.
That scares me a lot, honestly.
Yeah, I feel like I went off on a tangent there. There was something I would say.
I was just thinking about the rites of passage thing, like that. Like you shared a couple examples previously, like that can show up in many different ways for us. And I think about my entrepreneurial journey, and it's not to deflect anything you just shared there, but it's like, I know you've both probably felt this too, but like what it's taken to get where I am, like there's a lot of people that will never know what that has felt like. And people might pass, might see me, and they might think, yeah, I'm the same as I was, but no, I'm a different person. And especially with my spiritual growth and stuff, being a little more grounded, and you know, I was someone who used to take things really personally, and I think I've dissolved that quite a bit. So when someone reflects it to me that I haven't seen in a while, it's like, no, that's not really me anymore. So it's I like that idea of you going out, you know, killing the old you, and then or letting that person pass, and then coming back as someone fresh and changing the name. Like, that's so fascinating to me. That's pretty cool. Mm-hmm. But all to say is we all have our own journeys, and it's very difficult for us, I think, sometimes to resonate with everybody just because we didn't experience what they have.
Yeah. So many people are caught up in their experience that they don't have time to really acknowledge another person's.
And what you're doing is just so extreme. Like, mine's over the course of 12 years. Yours is 8 days. Like, yeah, that's just.
You're right, though. We every human experiences, I think, a lot of death and rebirths, and
Yeah.
people say all the time, "I'm entering a new chapter in my life." That's chapter has a beginning and an end,
Yeah.
right? So we all go through many. Yeah, I think the important thing to know is that we try to convince ourselves that the chapter has come to a close. This new thing,
Mm-hmm.
but it's really important to surround ourselves with people that understand the concept of change and growth, because I believe that we're the average of the 5 people we spend the most time with. And if we're in our lives and we're not surrounded by people that are interested in this type of conversation or the concepts of changing, and we're surrounded by people that are always trying to put us in the same box that we've always been in, like, that's a fucking hard uphill battle.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like we will lose friends. We'll lose friends along the way. We absolutely will. If we change, our friends will change. And we may also be surprised by the friends that we inspire and then start to decide changing with us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, what comes up for me is it's interesting, you've come home and there's a sense of like calm and quiet to you, and more like you're visually it looks like you're taking in more, and there is like that less control, but there wasn't like a fighting for I'm a different person now. It was it from an outside looking in, it looks like it was an inner knowing now. It's not like it's an inside job. It's not for you to prove, but it's for you to maybe embody.
Well, that's interesting. That's a great observation, Jay. When I went out there, my statement was, I'm an embodied leader, right? And so part of the Dan that I wanted to emerge on the other side was an embodied leader. And what was mirrored back to me was like, why do you even need to say that? Like, what's an embodied leader? And I was like, wow, it's someone that, is connected to themselves. Like, okay, what else, right? And then, so when I dug deeper, it was like, oh, okay, actually, what I actually just want to do is feel alive. That's embodied. I actually want to feel free, right? Connected to myself, connected to my community, and creative. When I'm creative and I'm in my creative essence, I also feel alive and free. So that's how it kind of went from I'm going to be an embodied leader that inspires other people to actually I'm just going to be creative, alive, and free and connected to myself and my community. And if I do that, I will naturally inspire others. I don't need to go around saying I'm an embodied leader. I'm just actually going to be it, right? And so that's really fucking cool to hear you reflect that back, because that was one of my biggest takeaways too, is I'm always trying to actually what was said to me was when I said I'm an embodied leader who calls forth the unlocked potential of people. I think Jetty immediately was just like, that would look good on an Instagram bio. Like, he immediately made fun of me, right? In a beautiful way. I was like, he's right. I'm thinking about what would look good on a fucking Instagram bio, as opposed to what would feel good in my body, right? Yeah, and I think just a fun element on. Go ahead.
No.
Creative, alive, and free. It's like when I was out there, I started, typically, like, I don't write poetry a ton because I'm afraid of what it'll look like. I've written a lot of poetry, but not recently. And when I was out there, I started writing songs and singing them, and then playing my heart as a djembe and singing to the trees. I'm like, that's not typically me. So that's like, that was me tapping into my true creative energy and just accepting it. And it was allowing me to feel alive. And then, I'm out there, I'm crying and I'm experiencing fear, right? Like my fight, flight, freeze overnight. Like that was feeling alive. I was fucking scared, which made me feel alive. So, and then free, I've always loved the word freedom. Even before COVID came along, and then I really became obsessed with freedom. But I always loved the word freedom, and I always kind of hesitated to say, well, I don't know if freedom wants it. My resistance with using freedom in my power statement was that it would make it sound like I'm, not committed, right? If I'm free, that means I can go anywhere. I can do anything I want. Nobody tells me what to do, and I didn't like that association. And I believe it was Jetty who reflected back. I can't, I'm paraphrasing the definition, but essentially along the lines of, a man who's really free is actually a man who's clear on what he's committed to.
Mm.
Because if I'm clear on what I'm committed to, that is freeing. Now I don't have to think about, oh, do I want this? Do I want that? You know, do I want to be single? Do I want to be in a relationship? Do I want to travel? Do I want to live here? That's actually not freedom. That's like scattered. That's chaos. That's not freeing. But when I'm like, no, I'm a committed husband. I'm a committed father. I'm committed to my community, and I'm committed to always growing. Now I know what I'm committed to. I'm clear on it. That's freedom, because now I can actually just go out and execute on my my purpose and my mission.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's a good reframe for people too. Is like,
Mm-hmm.
or at least it was helpful for me.
No, it's so helpful.
I was just going to share, when you shared both statements, I resonate with the second one. Like, I'm going to follow that guy. Like, it just sounded more sincere. Like, the first one, I was just like, I don't think narcissistic is the right word, but just this kind of not a fake leader, but just someone who's trying too hard, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Where the second one just felt like a leader and someone, like, there was comfort there.
Yeah.
And trust, if you will. I felt that. I was just like the polar opposite when you shared them both. I was like, no, I'm gonna go after that guy.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's probably there's a million reasons why to do a rite of passage, but or to do Compass, for example. But that's one of them. Every single man that came out with a power statement thought a lot about it. You know, the months leading up to Compass, and within 2 minutes around the fire, they were challenged in a beautiful way, and cut down in a beautiful way, and called forth in a beautiful way, and all those fucking statements changed.
Wow.
Every single one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And the statements that emerged were way more powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Well, and I recognize too in that statement you don't use the word leader. What I felt though was followers. So you're going to create a following just by being a leader without having to acknowledge you're a leader, right? Just
Right.
Be yourself and
Yeah,
do your own thing, and you'll.
Yeah, I think probably the best leaders in history didn't actually want to be in a position of leadership, right?
Yeah.
They get shoved into it. You know, the person that really wants to lead, we can be really skeptical of, like, what's your true motive?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, tying it back to the men's circles, when I first had my one-on-one call with Jetty, I was like, okay, I'm going to start men's circles. So, like, you know, part of me wants to do one-on-one is I want to know, like, you know, how many guys is good for a group? What should I charge? Should it be an hour? Should it be an hour and a half? Should it be weekly? Should it be bi-weekly? All these logistical things. And he just started laughing. And then he stopped me. He was just like, okay, masculine brain, Capricorn, you know, logistical guy. We're going to put you over here. We'll come back to you. Why are you creating a men's circle? I was like, well, because, you know, I'm good at convincing people to do shit. Right? You know, I've got that skill. This is good for them. So, and, you know, and I'm good at asking questions. I'm good at the structure. So basically my justification was I have the right skills to be a guy that leads men's circles. Mm-hmm. And he's like, okay, like what's, you know, and then, you know, he dug deeper, and I was like, well, you know, 8 men commit suicide in Canada every day, right? Men don't talk. We dominate alcohol, abuse, all these things. Start listing off the statistics. He's like, okay, cool statistics. Like, why do you want to lead men's circles? Right? And then I remember getting frustrated, like, what the fuck? But then I was like, he's right. Why do I want to lead men's circles? Right? And, you know, it took about 12 one-on-one sessions. And of course, those 12 one-on-one sessions had nothing to do with the logistics. It was all father work. It was all about me and my dad. And really, what it came to was I spent years trying to save my dad, right? Quote unquote, save him, make him healthier, you know, try to help him be someone different than who he is. And so creating the men's circles was actually an attempt by my subconscious to save other men because I couldn't save my own father. It's like, whoa. That's not why I was created. So really what I'm saying is, you're my daddies.
Yeah. Wow.
Oh.
So, yeah.
That's a beautiful way, you know, to come to the realization, because I think we always start with like, this is why I'm doing it. There's always, like, when you peel back the layers, there's always something a little bit deeper and some healing that you need to do.
And it helps when we have someone we trust, right? Someone that we've built a connection with, whose opinion we value, whose assessments of us we value, to reflect back to us so that we can get to that deeper insight. And that's going back to the men's circle, is like, that's what that is, right? You build these trust with these men so that when they call you out, you don't hear someone calling you out like you want to fight them. You hear someone calling you forth because they care about you. And that's a rare thing in today's world.
Yeah. I grew up feeling that when parts of me were seen, I had to be defensive, because it was the majority of the time people making fun of me or hurting my feelings in some way. So opening up always had that like preconceived connotation, like I need to hide more parts of me so that I'm safe from ridicule or being made fun of. And you know, boys tease, so peeling back those layers. But you know, the men and to touch on that point, I talked about this in men's group today, but we all need somebody that we look up to, that we respect, to start giving us the awareness that we can't quite see from the stories that we're telling. But it is understanding and gaining that reflective awareness where you can now start reflecting and being aware of, you know, your story, your pattern, but it's growing a muscle within yourself as well. So yes, you need that person to really open you up, give you a perspective, give you tools to work on. But it's, you know, at the end of the day, you can throw it all away if you're not gaining that reflective awareness yourself.
Yeah. I like that. I think that as you're speaking, I'm like, I think that's one of my greatest tools now. And I mean, Terry, my wife, she can still reflect things to me, but I think my ability to be, my ability to hold myself accountable and know I'm off my center out of integrity and call myself out on it quickly and be my own therapist and work through shit, I kind of enjoy it. It's a little cheaper than having to coach and all sorts of stuff, but I just love having the ability to do what you just said there, have that awareness, go, it's just, I don't know, makes life a little more enjoyable because you can work through it faster.
And the healing part of men's group for me was creating a brotherhood where my vulnerability wasn't used as ammunition. Because whether it was my brother, my friends, it was all ammunition. And I still go back to those places. It still is. So I'm like, yeah, just feel safe.
So what is it? So do you have any examples of like sharing stuff and then having like a friend or a brother use it as ammunition?
No.
Or do you have that experience?
Oh, not at all. No. Well, that's the thing. I think as
I see where you're going, Mr. Man.
How are we doing for time?
I have to run soon. You guys can keep talking if I have to split, but
No.
for context, Dan is he's very playful, and
that's a nice word.
Yeah, it is. It comes from a playful, beautiful, loving space. But he gets a hold of something, and he's gonna wring that rag for all it's worth. He's gonna get all the juice out of it.
I think that's an old version of Dan that you were talking about.
Sorry, no, he did it with the mustard thing last night.
Okay,
Jeffrey Mustard
the way you were talking about mustard was slightly perverted and wild. Like
if I'm ketchup and Justin's relish, we're uncomfortable with mustard. Mustard seems like we don't want them on the same burger.
You're a mustard monster, bro. We might need to hook you up with a
Fuck, that's right. You know what, to be fair, Jeff, there was a lot of versions of Dan that died out there. And the one that razzes you in particular did not die. He's creative, alive, free.
He's creative, he's live, he's free.
Alive, free.
You know what, though? I think there's a healthy way of doing it. And, you know, I've seen the two of you it actually bring you closer together.
Oh yeah, I agree.
Yeah, when you call me up late at night and tell me it's hurt your feelings, like I really respect that. I'm just kidding. Jeff's never done that. But it's true. Well, two things. So one is, you know, remember in kindergarten, the person you like, girl or boy, the one you really liked, that's the one you tease the most.
Yeah.
Right? Well, I really like Jeff, so it is true. It's the little boy in me that wants you to like me, and so I tease you so that you like me.
Oh,
I can't help it.
thank you.
So thank you for being that reflection back to me.
Let's wrap it up while you're still here.
Yeah, I got to leave here in about 9 or 10 minutes at the latest.
So
I'd love to tell you the final night because that one's a kick.
Yeah, and I feel like you just need to tie up just maybe
Tie it
like
up.
one last learning lesson on how you finish the night, and
Okay, well here's the final image that I'll leave folks with, and I think I briefly told you guys this, but the so slept exposed, which was a big deal for me for 3 nights.
Mhm.
The 4th and final night was coming around, and I thought, you know what? I put myself through hell. I can't do it anymore. I'm setting up my fucking tent, and I'm giving myself a final peaceful night here. I fucking earned it. I'm sleeping in my tent. It's going to be dry, no mosquitoes. Life is going to be good. Well, nature again said, "Hell yeah." You think so? You think you're done out here? So the encouragement on the final night is it's your vigil night, which means that you are encouraged to create a power circle. So rocks, twigs, leaves, whatever. You create a circle. So I did that outside of my tarp and outside of my tent. I created a circle. The encouragement is to stay up all night, standing in that circle or being on your knees in that circle, howling to the moon. It was a full moon our last night too, conveniently enough. And to howl out to the moon and really like allow all of the parts of yourself that you want to die. So you scream out to the moon and you let them die, and you stay up all night in that. So I had the intention of doing that for at least a good chunk of the night. I was like, I'm going to give this a go. Mm-hmm. I've made it this far. So I got in there, I started doing it. It was probably 6 or 7 o'clock, starting to get dark. You have no concept of time for 4 days, which is wild, other than looking at the sun. But it turns out it doesn't just go east to west. It kind of skims across, and in the forest, it's very hard to determine, but I digress. I think about an hour, 2 hours in, it starts pouring rain. I grabbed my rain gear. I went back into the circle. That lasted 10 minutes. Torrential downpour, like the most rain we had the entire time. Then it starts thunderstorming, like pitch black, thunderstorming, raining. I'm screaming out. It's a disaster. I decide, you know what? Fuck this. I'm going back to my tent. I retreat to my tent. I get in the tent, and I don't know how, but it's leaking everywhere. All the water's coming through. Apparently the fly doesn't hold up against torrential downpours, so every seam, everything's leaking. There's water in the bottom. All my stuff's getting soaked. And in the midst of all that chaos, it's 4 days in. It's the final night. You're delusional at that point. I like doze off. Well, all of a sudden, something crashes into my tent and goes, and I'm like, I woke up, I grabbed my knife, my thing. I'm like, who's there? Who is that? Start freaking out. I assume it's like one of the other guides, or one of the other guys is delusional. He's made his way over my tent. I don't know. It sounded like a human. Nothing's there. I don't see anything outside. There's a huge rip in the door of my tent. So whatever it was, it ripped it wide open. There's wild boars out there that are like 200 pounds. So I was like fearful of one of these dudes running through my tent at one point. Anyway, so I wake up. I'm like, I look outside and it's kind of bright. And, after 4 days, 4 nights, you don't remember too much about life beforehand. But I remember them saying, when you wake up on the final morning, as soon as you can distinguish color, that's when you can pack up your stuff and leave. And I looked outside, it started, I'm like, I convinced myself that I could see color differentiation in the trees because I want to leave so fucking bad. And I was like, okay, I just slept through the night. This is great. I'm out of here. It's pouring rain, it's still thunderstorming, whatever. I get my headlamp on. I pack up all my gear. I take down my tent. I take down my tarp. I take it all down. And I start wandering through the forest. And in hindsight, it's so obvious. It's like watching a scary movie, when you're like, why are they doing that? Right? But when you're in it, you're just in it, right? You're delusional. You haven't seen another human 4 days. You're like, what's his name on Castaway with Wilson and the volleyball?
Yeah, thanks, yeah.
Anyways, I'm wandering around the forest, and I realize, I look up, and the moon is just shining. And that is what has created the light. And it's not the morning. As a matter of fact, I must have only been sleeping for 20 minutes before that thing hit my tent. Because the moon typically would come out around like 10 at night, stay out till midnight. So this meant that I still had, 7 or 8 hours to go. And not only that, I just disassembled everything. I have no protection. Everything's wet, and I'm delusional. So I entered back into my power circle, which maybe this was the lesson all along. Nature was saying, no, get back in the circle, you. We're testing you one final time. You need to die tonight. And, I was soaked. It was thunderstorming, and I started thinking back to my birth story. And there was twice when I was in my mom's womb that I almost died. She got in a big car accident, went into contractions when she was 6 months with me, and then didn't give birth to me. She broke ribs and everything. There was another time where she slipped on ice, went into contractions. So like twice I almost died in the womb, essentially, which I only learned a couple weeks before I went out because I was crying and asking questions. And so it felt like similarly I was trying to be killed in the womb with my new incubation. And the thunder started being a symbol for me of like, these are the contractions. Every time the thunder hits, that's, it's like Mother Earth having a contraction. Shit. And in some ways, I didn't want to come out when I was born, and they had to use the forceps, to get in there and pull me out. And it felt like nature was trying to rip me out from my almost like forceps trying to pull me out of the womb. And so I started having all this imagery and this of like really like being reborn. And so anyways, I get my tarp out and it's soaked, and I end up just like curled up on the ground in the dirt, being rain poured on under this tarp, shivering, fetal position, just like I'm being reborn. And I was there all night long, 7 or 8 hours. It was the longest night of my entire life. I didn't sleep at all, and it just torrential downpoured the entire time. And after that moon went away, it was pitch black, and it was like it just never ended. I can't explain it. And then finally, I started to be able to distinguish color. And I tell you, I fucking got up so quick. That power circle was supposed to be sacred. I might have flipped it the bird. I was ready to get the hell out of there. And so that was the final night. So I don't know if there's a moral to the story, but I think the largest takeaway is we are not in control. In many ways, I realize I have designed my entire life to have other people codependent on me. My partner, my daughter, my family, the men's circles, the business, everybody comes to me, and so I realized that they're like, wow, I've designed a life where everyone's codependent on me, all the responsibilities on me, and I think I do that from a place of wanting to have control and to have certainty, right? And so out there was no control. Nature was just checked, nature checks you, says you're not in control. We've got you. And we're actually going to teach you a whole bunch of lessons, right? 50 of which I didn't list today. We're going to teach you all these things, and then we'll send you back out into the matrix. Wow. And then you can, take what you will. Yeah.
Relax, Terry. Yeah, I gotta run. Do you feel like, yes or no? Then do you feel like the parts of you, those 20, I think it was 20 parts that you wanted to die, did they pass on? Do you feel like you were able to leave them there?
Yeah, I think that a majority of them definitely died and or were put down. And I think that now the work is to make sure that I don't dig them up, to let them, pay them
that's
homage,
a good way to finish there, yeah.
Right? Visit the funeral sometimes, but don't bring your kids to work.
Yeah. I like that.
Well, thanks for being vulnerable and sharing your story, and I hope it does inspire more men to do a rite of passage and find themselves, truly find themselves.
Yeah, and not everybody can take 8 days away from their life and have the money and to go through this process. But at the very least, if you're someone who's listening who is lone wolfing it and thinks that nobody understands and thinks that you're unique and thinks that you're alone and all that, reach out, connect in with people. And
your problems are more common than you think. That's my biggest lesson from men's group.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, and the more we talk about it, be witnessed by people we trust, and take ownership of our story, the easier we can let the stories die that we want to die, and also take full ownership of who we are. which is also a really powerful thing to do.
Because you're ever evolving. You're never the same person. Like, you're not the same person as you were that got you into those, situations that you may hold shame or guilt,
Right.
On or over. And, it's a new day. And men's group is somewhere you can go where, you're seen as that person, the person putting an effort in to become a better version,
Love it.
Oh, boys.
I'm so honored that I was able to talk with today.
I'm glad
Thanks,
you're
brother.
the first person to be
Great.
on the pod.
I wanted to be Ari, but this is a good.
You gonna leave
You
that
know
on the podcast?
Yeah.
Hey, she's my better half. I hope you guys get her on.
Thanks, bro.
Thank you guys.
That was awesome. Thanks, dude.
That was good. All right, come on. You got to pick up that girl. Yeah, thanks, bro.
Thanks, bro.
Thank you for being with us. We love recording these podcasts. If you know anyone who would resonate with today's episode, we would be grateful if you would share it with them. If you have any questions or comments, do not be shy and reach out. We would love to connect with you. Until next time, be well, love yourself, and live consciously.